Theology Unplugged.
Hey friends, Michael Patton, Theology Unplugged. I am going to do something different today. I know I've been promising you guys that the introduction to theology is coming out. I'm having some problems with it simply because I forgot about some of the infrastructure that goes with the whole class, like the workbooks and transferring them over and you have to take every single picture, turn it into a picture that will work for a workbook instead of with a black background. It's proving really, really hard. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to carry on and just go straight to bibliology and hermeneutics, because that's a little bit easier. It's kind of like, I'm not winging it, of course, but I just study and teach and add things as I go. So it's a lot more within my paradigm. I know how to do that stuff. I don't know how to create a workbook, and I do know how to work PowerPoint, but it just takes a long time to do this. But anyway, so that's what our plans are for the coming weeks. Get ready to start on bibliology and hermeneutics. I will be in the background working on the intro, and maybe I'll do that at a different time and just kind of do that separately and release it separately. We'll see, but I know I need to work on that right now while I've got it fresh in my mind, and it's still fresh on my mind. But anyway, right now, as of today, I guess I just want to tell you guys my testimony, because a lot of you guys may not know my testimony. I don't know that it's a great testimony, but everybody's testimony is always becoming more than it was before. And so the last time I gave it was, 2013, maybe 2017. I gave a little short one whenever I got off the drugs, and then another one whenever I got on my CPAP, because those are big turning points in my life. But testimonies are just looking back, and I think they're really good because they discipline you to look back and to see the movements in your life, to see the movements that God has taken. You can be in the moment and be very frustrated because in the moment things don't feel right. They don't seem right. You can't see the Holy Spirit. You can't see the hand of God. But with testimony, or with I forgot what it was called in my seminary. It was something like a life experience. I don't know. There was something that we had to go through a workbook, and it was called something formal that a lot of people do, but you just look at your life. You look at all the turning points. You number all the turning points, try to find all the biggest movements, and then tell your testimony based upon that. So I guess that's what I'm going to do. Now, one of the things that about testimonies with me that I try to emphasize with people is that, well, let me do it this way. Let me start this way. My mother was Christian Women's Club chairman for Oklahoma City for a long time. She loved it. It was so great. It was so funny. Until the end of the day she died, she talked about it because she was serving the Lord. She was such an evangelist. She really was. All she cared about was everybody being saved. That is it. And we used to argue all the time about theology later on in her life. She was an Arminian. I'm a Calvinist. And, with her emphasis on evangelism, she couldn't understand how I could think this way. We had some good knockdown dragouts. But she was a chairman. Me growing up in my younger years, she worked for Christian Women's Club, which was an organization that had people give testimonies and tried to save people, just women, focused on women. She was in charge of teaching for a long time, teaching people how to give their testimonies. And she used to talk to me about it, and we'd listen to people's story, and we'd go through and try to correct it and figure it. She was really good at it. She really was, at least for the way people told testimonies back then, and even today to some degree. It was always start with who you were, then move to the big change, whatever event changed your life, and then who you are now. So 3 stages. I don't really go by that because it's always who you are now needs to be, this is the way that it was focused on, needs to be somebody that is really got it all together, because what you're trying to do is to show people what they can become like if they do the same thing as you. I've never really liked that because the longer I've lived, I've seen no matter where anybody's at, they don't really have it all together, and they are still in the middle of their testimony. And I don't think it's healthy to do it that way. I don't think you identify quite as much with people. I think whenever you don't have it together, but you're still going in the right direction, you're still moving forward. That's the best way to put it. And that's definitely me. I certainly don't have it together, never have. Maybe I thought I did at one point, but you'll hear about that. But anyway, whenever growing up, I grew up under my mom, who loved the Lord. My dad never really talked much about it, seemed somewhat antagonistic to it, but he was just a quiet man. A lot of influence in my life because of how dads are that way, but a very quiet man. Didn't have many conversations with him or anything, but I did learn from him. He was a good father. My mother was a wonderful mother. She loved the Lord. She'd have me read the Bible. Any way she could get the Bible into me. I would get grounded for things in high school. I was not a good guy. I would get grounded for things in high school, and in order to get out, she would make me read something like Pilgrim's Progress or The Chronicles of Narnia, and I hated being grounded, so I would read those. And I guess it worked. I mean, people who say that kind of stuff you shouldn't do because you make the Bible a punishment or God a punishment is not a good idea. It worked with me. And I'm sorry to say, I've done it a lot with my kids. As a matter of fact, I did it yesterday for money for my kids, my youngest kid. All right, $10 if you read this blog of mine. But anyway, nobody will read my blog. Nobody in my family reads my blogs. No, I'm just kidding. They do. My sister does a lot. Both my sisters do. But anyway, and my wife does. All right, I can't do this because I'm going to get somebody in trouble. Everybody does in my family. They're great. But anyway, so I grew up with a mother like that, and she was wonderful. She really was. I was not a good kid. I don't know why. I can't break it down. I was overweight whenever I was 9 to 12, and then I lost a lot of weight. I think during that time I had a lot of friends, and they all had girlfriends really early on, and that's all I wanted was a girlfriend. That's all I wanted. I was just like any other young guy. I love the Lord, but I wanted a girlfriend. And everybody else had one, and it just sucked that I couldn't have one. And then once I lost a lot of weight and started working out and got really in shape, I'm telling you, I was really in shape back then. Whenever I was really in shape, I began to be able to go out with girls. And I didn't do good stuff. I didn't have good stuff in mind. I mean, starting whenever I was 15, it was partying with my friends. It was looking for girls, chasing girls, just friends, and girls so we could talk about it to friends. That was basically it. Not so I could get a girlfriend so much, but so that I could satisfy my desires and then go tell my friends about it. It was just a bad deal. I was really, really bad. And I tell you this because it was so bad. That's the only reason. I look back and I still see this as pretty much the most debaucherous time of my life, all the way until I was 21. Just hanging out at the bars, hanging out with my friends. Still have all those friends, still love them. And many of them really do love the Lord now. A whole lot of them do. But we were just all bad. We weren't good people. But today it's different. I don't know. I mean, today they don't. I'm glad today, you just do stuff on your computer, which I'm not glad about that. But at the same time, you're not doing the stuff that I was doing quite so much. But I kept on telling the Lord in high school. I remember consciously telling him this because I did know him. I did love him. He was where I would go to whenever I was down. I would turn to the upper room discourse over and over in my Bible, John chapter 14 through 17. I mean, it was just every page was clean in my Bible just about, except for those pages. They were very dirty. I found Jesus there. I really did. I mean, very young, not necessarily on my own, but as my mother pushed me to read the Bible, that's where I stopped. And over I read that, and I found him, would have conversations with him. And I remember a few conversations, me and my friend, I had two best friends, and they loved the Lord too, but they were doing the exact same thing I was. And I remember saying, whenever I get out of high school, I quit. I promise, Lord. I really will. Just let me get it out of my system. And then once I got out of high school and got into college, okay, just whenever I get out of college, I'll quit, Lord. I promise. It was just always, I'll be back later. Sorry. I really am sorry, but I'll be back. Now, during this time, I would be going to church here and there. And whenever I would try to find a girlfriend, I would make sure that they were believers. If they weren't, sorry, I didn't do anything. I didn't push it any further. Even, I mean, not necessarily that I was always looking for a girlfriend, but if there was somebody I really liked, that's what I would go to is, are you a believer? And if they weren't, or if they didn't express it well enough, look at me. I mean, look what I was doing. Why would I be the judge of that? But anyway, if they didn't express it well enough, nope, sorry, we're done. You know, it's moving on. And so that's what I was looking for at the time. And I needed to, well, I was going to church, and I got really bad for a while, really, really bad. You know, just kind of left the Lord alone for months and months. Didn't talk to him, nothing. And then I remember just being really, really convicted about it. I was in Arizona. I was with all my friends. We just moved to Arizona, just to move. And I felt really, really bad while I was in Arizona. I felt the conviction of the Holy Spirit. And I remember laying down on my face. I know exactly where I was at in the room, laying down on my face and stretching out my hands and saying, Lord, I can't do this anymore. I am so sorry. It is not me. This is not who I am, and it's destroying me. And it was. I think it destroys any human, but if you're a Christian and in that, it really, really hurts. And some people can put up with it. Some people find ways to put up with it. But I'm glad I couldn't. I just flat on my face and said that. And I'm not saying I changed that day. But from then on, it started to change. From then on, I was becoming more serious. Now I'm going to church, then going to the bar and looking for a girl. But at least I was going back to church. And I remember, just feeling bad about this whole time. I tried to change. I would stop so many times. I would tell all my friends, hey guys, they'd be all ready to go out, getting dressed, drinking beer and trying to throw me a beer. And I'd say, nope, not doing it anymore. They'd say, what, Michael, you quit again? You quit for God again? And I'd say, yes, I'm sorry. I mean, I have to. This time it's for real. And then, a few days later, I'd be back up there. But it was always the time whenever I felt really bad for doing something, like hurting somebody really bad or something. Some girl that I would hurt really bad, and I just feel really bad. Of course I would. Why wouldn't you? It was horrible. Sorry if anybody's watching that. That was one of them. But that's what the process I was going through, and I'd stop for a week and then go back. And then I started stopping for a few months and then going back. I stopped one time and started a Bible study. I was going to a particular church that had this preacher that was an amazing preacher. Really, he was exactly what I needed at the time. He taught theology. I never heard theology. Heard Bible my whole life. Never heard really theology. Everything put together as a whole. And the way my mind works, that's the best way to hit me. I need to see the big picture before I get into the details. And he gave the big picture. That is theology, systematic theology. And I'd never seen that before. And then all of a sudden, my mind started getting engaged. It wasn't just my heart that my mom gave me. It was my mind that started getting engaged, saying, this is really true. All this stuff is true. All this stuff my mom taught me. And I didn't think it was really true before, but something's happening to me to where my mind is getting engaged, and I'm getting really, really excited about this, really convicted in a different way. And so that's a process at this point. And this guy had so much to do with it. He really did. He was a great guy. He ended up dying while I was in the middle of this. He went in for surgery, for throat surgery. He died. But beforehand, I told him, I said, I had lunch with him, paid for my lunch, didn't have any money, gave me books, didn't have any money. But anyway, I said, I'm thinking about going to seminary. And he was really excited about it. He knew my lifestyle. He knew that I was going to his church and then to the bar. But he was so encouraging and so gracious. I mean, open arms no matter what. And me knowing that he knew what I was doing but still had those open arms, that meant a lot. It really did. I didn't see him as condoning anything I do or anything I was doing. I knew he didn't want me doing that. But I also knew he was gracious and he trusted the Lord and he was waiting and hopeful. And so he told me to go to Dallas Seminary. And I didn't know there was any other seminaries. I thought Dallas Seminary was where everybody wanted to go be a preacher or whatever I was going to be. I thought I was going to be a preacher for sure, but that's what he told me to do. So I said, all right, I set my heart on that. It's kind of like Jesus. He set his heart toward Jerusalem. He set his mind toward Jerusalem, set his face toward Jerusalem. My face was now set towards Dallas Theological Seminary, just not quite as committed as Jesus. I still had a few more failures to go. And so I started a Bible study. It was called the All-American Bible Study because I was a fitness trainer at All-American Fitness Training, All-American Fitness. And it was called the All-American Bible Study, All-American Bible Study. And I did it for a few weeks, and nobody really showed up. I mean, the first time there was like 7 people. I thought I was the most popular person on the planet. And then like 2 weeks later, I was sitting out in the parking lot waiting for one person to show. And it was only one girl that showed. And I was not going to teach her by herself. That was really weird. And it was just very discouraging for me. And after that, I went out with my friends and did something bad with a girl again. And that was the last time. And it was over. I quit at that point. Because I felt so bad. It was just horrible. Because I was doing the Bible study. You don't do that kind of stuff. And but there was a process in that week too, because I was going to school and coming back, and that's whenever I had more of a revelation about my mind. It was like I was thinking about all the stuff. I don't know what it was that point. I think it was the resurrection of Christ I was thinking about, and something about Chet Lackey. That's who my preacher was at the point. That died. Something that he had said about the resurrection. Giving apologetics, because he was really big into apologetics. And so I was like in my mind going, this stuff is really true. I was going from it's true to it's really true to it's really, really true. And now I'm at it's really, really, really true. It's just that kind of deal. My conviction's going up. And then I was like, why can't I just commit to it at this point? I don't understand. If it's true, it's worth everything in my life. If it is everything I believe it was like a light bulb. If everything I believe is actually true, it is worth everything, not holding back at all, a complete commitment to God. He is right about everything. And then I said, it was basically a syllogism. If it's true, it's worth everything. Premise 1. Premise 2, it is true. And then premise 3, it's worth everything. That's what I did. That's what went on in my mind. And from then on, I stopped. I did. I went to my friend's house. I think I don't know. It's maybe my last time to say goodbye. They were throwing me a beer. I said, nope, don't want one. And started walking down the stairs. Had a little pause as I was walking down the stairs to leave his room. And then I just walked on down. And that was the last time I did that. So from then on, I was committed. I had met my wife, Christy, who I in the background was going on that she was a believer. She was the one that I was going to be with once I could figure everything out, but I had to do it on my own. I could not move into a situation that forced me to do this, to make a commitment that I needed to make. I didn't like to be forced. So I said, I'm doing it on my own, waited 6 months and then called her, and we started going out for the next 6 months, and then I asked her to marry me. And went to seminary, a year later, a year and a half later. So it was 2 years before I was acting like this, and 2 years later, I'm in seminary. I'm lucky they took me because I was not good in college, just so you know. I made a .33 my first semester in college, all F's and 1D, and a .66, I think, my second semester. They kicked me out. All I did was party. I didn't go. I did bring it all up and do very well in college after that. Brought it up to enough to get in Dallas Theological Seminary, and then I did very, very well in Dallas Theological Seminary. And so from then on, I went to be a pastor. And here's the deal. You got to understand. That life was behind me. It's all over, right? Here's who I am now. If I can get people to do the same thing as me, they would be as committed as me, and their life would be, the road that they're on, the broken road, would be paved perfectly from then on. And that's how I felt like mine was. The broken road was paved perfectly. I can get through anything because it's true. And that's really the motto of everything within me. It is true. Therefore, it's worth it. So, total commitment over to seminary. No matter what happens, I can make it through with the Lord. Did good. I got a job under Chuck Swindoll at Stonebriar Community Church. My first job right out of seminary is incredible. I mean, Chuck is part of the reason why I went down there. He's the only one I knew. I listened to Insight for a living, all during this time. It was incredible. Grace Awakening changed my life so much, that series. I listened to the original Grace Awakening whenever it came out. And so Insight for Living during those times, it's just great. I'm under Chuck Swindoll. I can't believe it. I'm under Chuck Swindoll, the greatest preacher I've ever known. I do think he's one of the greatest preachers that's ever been. Just retired recently, by the way, but 90 years old. Can you believe it? 90 years old, Chuck Swindoll. But anyway, so I was under him in 2000, and I worked for him from 2000 until 2006, so 6 years. Now, during this time as a pastor, as a singles pastor, and I ran the continuing theological education department, which that's where the theology program came from. During this time, I started the theology program. During this time, I taught theology. I tried to teach the same way Chet taught me, and it was going very, very well. My sister, however, in comes my sister. It was me, my wife. At this time, I had a couple of kids. This was 2000 to 2004. My sister lived in Dallas as well. Angie, she was a little bit older than me, but she kind of had moved the same pattern as me. The partying and then the straightening up, getting married, and here we're now trying to follow the Lord our mother taught us about, the Lord our mother believed in. Now, Angie and I were best friends at this time. She was best friends with me and my whole family. She was always with us, always. She was very, very beautiful. You got to understand about Angie. She incredible, almost as beautiful as my wife. I mean, just absolutely stunning. And she, like I said, was my best friend, hanging out with her. She went to church with us. We were at Stonebriar Community Church right when they started. We were in this building that had these chairs, and they used to give these prayer booklets, and me and Angie would tear it in half, and she would pray for half the people at church. I'd pray for the other half, and we were just trying to do what was right. She really was trying to do what was right too, and she seemed to really be following the Lord, and I know she was. I know she loved the Lord. However, she was going through some troubles. I don't really know what the troubles were. Maybe it had to do with drugs that she was taking to sleep that turned into something else. Maybe it had to do with just unmet expectations. Another thing it may have had to do with was she was going through a divorce. It was just all really, really bad. And she was staying at our house while she was going through the divorce. And I tell you this story because it's an important part. My sister Angie, I need you to hear this because it's going to tell a lot for what goes on next. But she was living at our house. She wasn't really that depressed. She was just frustrated because she couldn't sleep. Actually, I would say she wasn't even depressed. She was mad about what was going on, but she had her full mind to her. We went to sleep one night. It was a Thursday night. And the next morning I woke up, went to Stonebriar. I was on my way home from lunch, and my mom called. And, Angie called, and she said, Michael, my mind has broke. I was like, what do you mean your mind is broke? She said, my mind is broke. I've gone crazy. Something happened to my mind. And she's in an absolute panic, crying and just insistent that her mind broke. No matter what I said, it broke, and it's done. It's broke for good. It's over. That's the way she was talking. I said, Angie, come on, it'll go away in the next day. Just go home, rest, do whatever, take off work. And I didn't think much of it. I really didn't. I thought it was weird, but at the same time, of course, that'll just go away. Everything goes okay because we love the Lord and we follow the Lord. And that's what we're going to do. And so the next day it didn't go away, and she's still in a panic. And I'm still saying, come on, it's going to go away. I promise. Don't worry. Then the next day it didn't go away. It lasted throughout the weekend until Monday. And then Monday we were getting kind of worried because she's just catatonic. And she's insistent that she's going to be like this forever. She's insistent now saying she needs to kill herself. And it's getting scary, right? But I get up, go to work. Heading home for lunch, my mother calls and says, Michael, you need to go check on Angie. I said, why? And she said, she's really bad today and I'm scared. And I said, okay, where do you want me to check? She's not at my house. She said, go check at her old house because they had moved out, but the furniture was still there. Go check at her old house. And so I went to her old house. I was pretty much in a panic at this time too. And go around the back, tried to get in, all doors locked. Finally, I had to kick open the door. And got inside, went straight to the garage to check. I was a little bit scared. She might be in the garage with car going or something. And then went upstairs, checked all the bathrooms. I was scared about that. And then finally went to her room, and there she was. She was laying on the bed. And sure enough, there was a bottle of empty pills beside her with a notebook that was a suicide notebook. And I shook her and tried to get her up. And finally, she started talking. I said, Angie, did you try to kill yourself? And she said, yes. I mean, just kind of at a sluggish way, like that, And so I picked her up, threw her over my shoulder, ran, just crying as I go the whole way, run to the hospital and, hand her to whoever I handed her to and said she tried to kill herself. And I'm just bawling. I don't know why I remember that so well, but that was hard because I was scared. But they ended up getting her better. She didn't die. Most people don't die from those pills, especially whenever you find them at a decent amount of time. So they put the charcoal in her stomach and got her out. And so then there's so much more to tell, but we get her back and she's still having the problems, and this lasts for the next year and a half. I have to go look for her 17 times. I bust down her door after it's been fixed 3 more times. Going the same pattern. But each time never found her again. She never tried to quit, except for, let me tell you about this. I have to tell you about this. One time, whenever my mother told me to go find her, because it was always my mom calling. She was calling from Oklahoma City. I was in Dallas. The rest of my family was in Oklahoma City. My 2 other sisters and my mom and dad. They're always worried, thinking, it's 3-hour drive away. But they'd always call me, say, Michael, go check on her again. And one of these times I said, Mom, she's probably doing fine. I've done it over and over again, and she's probably just at work. She said, please go check. I went to her house, busted down the door again, and then didn't find her. I said, Mom, she's not here. She's at work. I'm telling you. She's been working a little bit here and there lately. So she's at work. Don't worry about it. She said, no, Michael, she is so bad. You don't understand. I said, okay, I'll wait right here and see if she comes home, because this is where she'll probably come to kill herself. But the problem is she's not going to come with pills. She's going to come with a gun. That's what I said. I said that exact thing. She's going to come with a gun because she knows I find her every time with pills. She's got to do something fast. And so for some reason, here I am at her house for the next hour, and I decide to go out in the front yard. I don't know why. The first part of the weird thing that goes on here. I decide to go out in the front yard, and I'm out in the front yard, and then all of a sudden I see her coming down the street. We make eye contact whenever she's about a block away, all the way till she slowly pulls in front of the house, looks at me. We stare, and then she just takes off. Just floors it. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, she has a gun. Why would she do this otherwise? Why would she run? She was coming here to kill herself. She has a gun. She's going. So I jumped in my car. And now you got to understand, I had one of these 1985 300 diesel Mercedes, which, as I've said many times before, goes 0 to 60 and never. Okay, so I'm trying to fly to catch her, and I cannot catch up to her in the neighborhood. At first, I thought maybe she's going to a park in this neighborhood and going to do it really fast. So I drove around the neighborhood, left, right, I didn't know which way to go because I couldn't find her anymore. She was long gone. So here I am. My heart's broke because I know she has a gun and I don't know what to do. And I know my mom's waiting for me to call. So I drive out of the neighborhood and I didn't know which way to turn. Here I am pulling out of a neighborhood in Plano, Texas. And do I turn right or left out of the neighborhood? Do I even keep on looking for her? For some reason, I still am. I'm like, okay, which way? And I remember thinking this in my mind. Which way do I turn? I don't even know which way to turn. But I turn left, and then I'm doing it again. I did this a few times. And I'm like, this is so stupid of me. How in the world am I going to find her in a city as big as Dallas? I have no clue where she went. So I got on, started heading toward my house, but then I thought, where would I go if I was going to kill myself? Just what direction would I go? That's all I was thinking. What direction would I go? And I thought I'll go toward Oklahoma City, so I'm going to go toward home, back home. Go away from home, it's worse, less comfort. Go toward home, and it's at least easier. I don't know. That's what I thought. So I started, I even jumped on the highway. Jumped on, I think it was 121 that I jumped on. Started heading down 121. Again, I'm thinking, what am I doing? I didn't even pray during this time. You got to understand, I wasn't like saying, dear God, please help me have a miracle, as I'm pulling out of this neighborhood or just to find her. I did not pray. I thought, Lord's going to do what he's going to do. That's what I thought. And I was kind of mad maybe at him. I don't know. But anyway, so driving down 121 and after, turn left, right, everywhere, I don't know. Then after a few miles, I just decide I'm pulling in this hotel. I don't know why I pulled in that hotel. I just did. It was just, there was hotels everywhere. I just pulled into this one. It's so stupid. But I pulled in the hotel, made an immediate left, made an immediate right, went around, and there was her car. And you don't understand the shock that went through me. Because I drove in every turn directly to where she was at. It was just like, there was just this sudden wave that God was present. Because what else could it be? Even though I wasn't praying, even though I wasn't really involving him, all of a sudden, God just said, boom, I'm here. Now go get her. And so I flew to the front, and I said, you got to tell me which apartment she's in, or which hotel room she's in. And they were like, no, we can't. That's against the law. And I was like, she's going to kill herself, I promise. They said, well, we can call her, and then see if she wants to talk to you. And so they called the number, and then they said, yeah, your brother's here. And there was a long pause, and then they go, okay, she'll talk to you. And I got on the phone. I said, Angie, what are you doing? She said, how did you find me? I said, I don't know. No time for that. What hotel are you in? Which number are you in? She told me. I went there and went and found the gun. She had hid it behind the toilet. Took her, got her in the car, and we started heading towards Oklahoma City so I could put her with my mom for a while, and that's the process that we went through at that point. Now, remember, this was 1 year and 3 months into it, and I tell you all this because it's incredibly impactful on me and my testimony. I know this is probably going to be a long testimony, but I don't know. If you're listening to it, it said my testimony, so that's what you wanted to hear. But I would go and... This was in, I think it was in August of 2003. And then for the next few months, she was staying at our house, living at our house, and she started to drink a whole lot. Started having beers all the time, trying to escape it. And I was pretty judgmental at that time. I look back now, and it's just, I don't know. I don't know whether I did what was right or wrong, but it was just, it feels wrong now. But I was like, Angie, you can't drink here. I got my kids all the time, and you can't be drinking like that. I don't know why. I guess I don't know what I was thinking. I can't even really think of the principle involved here that overrides the principle of taking care of her, because she did want to stay with me. And she said, you can't put me back with Mother. Mother will send me to someplace, and I can't do it. I said, Angie, you can't live here. I'm sorry. So we went home for Christmas 3 months later, because Angie had been living there. And, no, for Thanksgiving. This was at Thanksgiving. Um, and we went home for Thanksgiving, and Angie was with me. She rode with us, and then I left her there. And I remember the look on her face when I was leaving, but that was whenever she was drinking, and I thought I was doing right. I don't know. It was horrible. I mean, but anyway, I left her there with my mom because I thought that was best. And then came home for Christmas, and things were bad. She was just so bad. She would just stare catatonically at the wall all the time, and had maybe one or two times where she snapped out of it, and it was weird because the way she snapped into it was overnight, and she would sometimes snap out of it in 1 minute and be fine and be laughing and saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I was." It was really weird. I tried to cast a demon out of her. I did. I mean, I didn't know how to cast a demon out of her, but I was doing everything I could. But anyway, so Christmas time, I went home, and it was January 4th. Let's see here. January 4th. I guess she left. Yeah, she had left my mom's house. She drove back to Dallas herself. My mom called me on January 4th and said, "Michael, go find her, please." And so I started my search. This time it was the search from her house to the regular places. And then there was also what do you call them? Just a place where you check in, where you get mental health, a mental health place that'll take you for a while. I took her there one time already, and I thought maybe she went back there on her own. So I drive to that place. It's in Dallas, deep in Dallas, and I'm there with all my kids. She wasn't there. And then I'm leaving. Golly, this is weird remembering all this. I mean, just the details. It's crazy what we can remember. But anyway, I'm leaving, and I am on 635 in Dallas, and I'm going past the mall. And I know exactly where I was at. I could take you straight to it. But anyway, so I'm going down the street, and then suddenly I get a phone call, and I don't know why. This is really weird. But I thought why do I even tell this? But I thought somebody was pulling me. Oh, I thought a cop was pulling me over by my phone. You know, the phones that we had. I don't know what is a little Nokia. And I was like, what in the world? That is, I don't know that number. And then in my mind, I was like, I'm getting pulled over. And I was like, why would I think that? But anyway, I got it. I remember the guy's voice. Remember everything about it. He said, is this Michael Patton? In his country voice. Is this Michael Patton? And I said, yeah. And he said, are you in your car? And I said, what? What is it? He said, will you pull over, please? I said, my sister's dead, isn't she? And he said, yes, sir. And then I asked him how she did it. She's at a hotel. She went to a hotel, different hotel. One in Denton, Texas. Don't stay at any hotels there. You might see her ghost or something. But anyway, so... Then I'd pulled over. I pulled into a parking lot, an under garage at that point because I was just so shocked. And then I started driving, and the only thing I could think of was, how am I going to tell my mom? I don't know. I've got to call her. She's waiting on me to call. And I called her finally, about 20 minutes later. And she goes, hi, honey. She usually doesn't talk to me like that. She's usually mad at me. She was really nice to me. Hi, honey. And I said, Mom, I'm so sorry. I got some really, really, really bad news. That's how I put it. Really, really, really bad news. And she said, what? I said, Angie's dead. And she said, okay, bye. Okay, bye. And hung up the phone. And I wasn't there, but I've heard about how that went. It was bad at my house in Oklahoma City, or my parents' house in Oklahoma City. But anyway, so all of that to say, that's a big deal in our lives, my whole family's lives, because suicide is a darkness that is in the air always around you. It's an ambient music that just darkens things from then on. Whoever commits suicide, what they do to their family, what they do to their loved ones is horrible. But at that time, here I am, a pastor. Here I am, the one in the family who is serving the Lord in this way. So I got to take care of everybody. So the next couple of years were really hard, but I was getting through. I was still at Stonebriar. I was still preaching. It was difficult because my mom was very, very depressed. She started going downhill, and having her problems. And I'd talk to her, and we'd talk about it, and she said, God, she said, I remember that last thing she said to me was, Michael, um, I, let me put it this way, because let me get it right, because this is really important. Michael, I'm mad at God and I don't like him, but I'm still going to follow him. I remember that. That's the last thing I remember her saying. I remember where I was at whenever that happened. I mean, a lot of these things I remember. But anyway, so I'm back in Dallas and get a call, and my mom, it was my sister. She said my mother had an aneurysm, and I needed to come home. So I went home really quick. She had high blood pressure, and like she wasn't handling Angie's deal well at all, really, really bad, and she was never sleeping. She was bound to have something like this. But she had an aneurysm, and they ended up taking out part of her brain, and she just wasn't the same anymore. I mean, after that, she was so sweet, but she was just different. She was such a different person. It was like going from who she was, a very glamorous, beautiful, in so many ways, outgoing evangelist that loved everybody, to just this kind of child that we had to take care of. So that was what I was dealing with next. And so I come home, I end up quitting Stonebriar. I had already started, it was called Reclaiming the Mind Ministries at that time in 2006. It became Credo House Ministries later, but I started that, and so I could quit, and I was making money doing this, Reclaiming the Mind Ministries, started Theology Unplugged, all that. All the way back then, I've been doing this. And so I moved home to try to take care of my family, because what was I? I was Superman. I was going to come home and take care of them. Hey, everybody's falling apart. My mom, my sister's dead. My mom had an aneurysm. My dad's getting ready to start drinking again and probably kill himself. So I'm going to go save the family. I'm the only one who can handle it, because I'm the godly one with all the degrees, right? So I go home, and that's what I did, right? And ended up, my dad did start drinking a whole lot, because my mom wasn't getting any better, and she was really, really bad, and you had to do everything for her, from lift her. She couldn't walk, couldn't talk, couldn't do anything, but I mean, she could say a couple of words like woo woo. That was one of her main words. Or you consider all things. She would say just same things over and over again, laugh and watch TV. That's all she did. So you had to really take care of her. It was a full-time job. And finally, I ended up moving in with my dad, with my family. It was a big house. And saying, listen, I'll go there and stay as long as my family can have this, control of the house. Christy can have control of the house, that we'll live here, and you just basically stay in this room over here, Dad. And not that he had to stay in there, but you know what I mean? That's his room, and Christy's got control of the other stuff. I needed to have a place that Christy could control, and decorate. She loved to decorate. But anyway, I moved home, and I'd started Credo House. And I know this is a small thing, me just throwing in the ministry here, but this is a bigger part of my testimony. I could tell you about how I started the ministry and what all I did and all that. That's not what this is about. It's not a testimony of the ministry. It's a testimony of me. But by that time, I had started the Credo House in Oklahoma City for headquarters. Credo House was a theological coffee shop that was to help me in the development of theology. I wanted to do the same thing for everybody that Chet did for me. I didn't want to be a seminary professor. I wanted to bring I wanted to bring theology to everybody. And so that was my goal. I remember thinking that in class one time, sitting in historic theology class under John Hanna, saying, I sat down, I bowed my head, I said, God, if you can let me give this kind of stuff to everybody the rest of my life, I would love that. And so far, that's what I've done. Anyway, fast forwarding, the Credo House is there. I moved in with my parents. The Credo House is going well. Yeah, I mean, it really is. Theological coffee shop. I mean, it was big, had tons of people. We were having all the Credo courses. I was having Daniel Wallace and Gary Habermas and Doug Rotheis and Craig Keener and Craig Blomberg. I mean, just the greatest scholars in the world I was bringing in for a weekend, having them teach an entire course so that I could. That's where all the Credo courses came from. Back from 2010 to 2014, that's what I was doing. But at the same time, I was still taking care of my mom and my dad. Now, my dad, in 2013, he was so depressed. He really was. He just drank all day long. He finally ended up being forced retired, and he would drink all day and just keep his head down. I don't know. It was horrible. He was never kind to us, but he always wanted us back. You know what I mean? I mean, it was just like he never talked very much, but he wanted everybody safe, no matter what. But in 2013, he got pneumonia on a fishing trip, and he caught the biggest bass he had ever caught. He loved to fish, the biggest bass he ever caught. And then he came home. He got pneumonia, would not go to the hospital. I was begging him to, because he didn't look like he was breathing very good. I think he just wanted to die. I do. I mean, of course he did. I mean, why do you do that? He didn't like life anymore. I don't know if he was Christian. One sister thinks he was, and I hope so. I don't know. He confessed Christianity, but he just didn't. I don't know. I just don't know. He never really talked about anything about God, and I think he was kind of proud of me. I saw him the other day in a picture, and he had a shirt on that said Dallas Theological Seminary. I'd never seen that before. And I asked my sisters, I said, where did this come from? And she said, he wore that shirt all the time. So that made me really happy. I'm going to cry. Good Lord. Okay. But anyway, so he got pneumonia and he wanted to go to the hospital. We finally got him to go. His brother came over because we were calling him, and his brother came over and he made him get up. He went to the hospital and he was dead by the night. It was a horrible deal. Lungs just filled up and all of his organs shut down. So he died pretty quick. And then at that point, here I am with my mother. Now, at this point, I had already, let me overlap. I had already started, back in 2010, I had some kind of toe problem. And I was looking for some Advil or aspirin. You got to understand, I prided myself on never taking any pills at all. I was like, I just don't need them. I'm healthy, perfectly healthy. I do everything right. And I didn't even take aspirin or Advil back then. But my toe was really hurting bad. It was an ingrown toenail. I couldn't get it out. And so I went and looked for aspirin. None there. No Advil, no nothing. But I looked in the back, and there were some of these old pain pills of my wife's for something. And so I took one. And I mean, you don't understand what all changed. This was already, during my mom deal. I was helping take care of her. Here's my dad starting to drink. I was going downhill. I didn't know I was going downhill. I didn't know I was emotionally starting to break. But I started taking those pain pills. I took one of them, and then all of a sudden, let me go back to, I just took the one pain pill, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not depressed at all. I didn't even know I was depressed before. Oh my gosh, I can do and I got up and I am going 100 miles an hour, doing everything, writing blogs and, just whenever I'd teach with them, I felt like I was Superman, super dad, super husband, everything whenever I was on those pain pills. I had no clue that they were so bad for you, but I started taking them at that point, and then I got addicted pretty quickly, and was able to stop that time for a little bit. I stopped the pain pills. But then, golly, do I even put my time of doubt in here? How can I tell my testimony without telling about this time of doubt that I went through? This is probably the defining moment. So all of that keep in place. But here's what I need to say. In 2010, this was around the same time as the pain pills, but in 2010, I was helping a guy. I was trying to help a guy who was doubting his faith. he actually had left the faith at this point, and he wrote blogs, why he left the faith and stuff. And I was friends with him, and I wrote blogs. My blog was big, his blog was big, and we used to kind of know each other because, back then there were so few blogs, all of us knew each other. And so I would talk to him, and he would talk to me, and we were kind to each other. I was kind to him, and I was trying to get him back to the faith. And then I got up on March 15th, I got up and went to go check my computer, my emails, and I got an email saying that he had died. He had a heart attack that night. And that really struck me, I guess. I don't know, because whenever I went to go sit back down, by the time I sat back down, and you're not going to understand this, probably some of you will, because I know a lot of people have gone through this exactly the way I have. But whenever I sat down, all of a sudden, my entire faith was gone. Emotionally, I did not believe in God anymore. Now, I panicked. You got to understand, I panicked. Because I was like, oh my gosh, I help other people who doubt their faith, because that's what I love to do. I love to help people who doubted their faith. I think I was fascinated by it. I think I was a little bit scared about it too, because I didn't know why they left their faith. So I had all these books of people who left their faith. I had read them all. I had interviewed people that had left their faith. I interviewed people who wrote books about people who lose their faith. But here I am all of a sudden sitting down, and my faith is gone, and I went into a panic. Emotionally, I went into a panic. And I said, God, what have you just done? What have you done? You are not going to do this to me, Lord, not to me. I'm the guy who helps people get out of their doubt. I don't go through doubt like this. How can I help people? And I mean, it just was gone. I didn't understand how it could be gone. And you may be saying, Michael, I don't understand that either. I don't know how to explain it to you, except for at that time I realized that faith was not for me. I did. I realized that faith could be taken away or given at any moment. I went through such a panic for many days. It was such a darkness, such a depression. I mean, it was, everything was worthless. To go from who I was to who I was, from 12 o'clock, March 15th, 2010 to 12:01, to go from such extremes to such extremes. I was a believer, and then I was an absolute unbeliever. And then I was in a panic because I wasn't really an unbeliever, but I couldn't believe. I couldn't grab hold of my faith. I felt like I'd been duped. Emotionally, I felt like everybody had tricked me my whole life to believing in God. I know that sounds weird, but that's the way it was. I felt like everybody had tricked me my whole life to believing in God. And so I panicked, and I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't do anything. I was just absolutely depressed. In a darkness, in a black hole. Never felt like anything like this before. I finally understood why Angie killed herself. I was like, I get it now. I know why she killed herself. Okay, Lord, I know why she killed herself. If that's what you're trying to do, I get it, and I won't judge her anymore. Get me out of this. Nope, doesn't work. Doesn't work that way. So I just sit depressed for many, many, many days, not sleeping. I used to sit out in the passenger seat of my wife's SUV in the garage, just praying for God to do something, praying for God to open the garage door and shut it, to turn on the lights, anything. I mean, the things you do whenever you're very young. Here I am, needing that from the Lord. I'm not understanding why he's not giving it to me. Saying to Lord, this is such an easy thing. Why can't you just give me this easy thing? I've got to have my faith back. I had Credo House at that point. I had to go teach. I had to go teach that night that it happened, actually. For many, many months, here I am going and teaching the theology program, this stuff that I've taught, even though I didn't believe it while I was teaching it. I mean, intellectually, you got to understand. Intellectually, I still believed it. It was like I go through all the stuff that I would go through with the doubters that I help, and I'm like, okay, let's go through all the apologetics, because that's the first thing you think. Apologetics. Whenever people are doubting their faith, it's an intellectual issue. So you go through the apologetics and show them rationally how to believe. That doesn't work. It doesn't matter. Because rationality is not the problem. It's a problem of the emotion. It's a problem of the will. It's a problem that only God can fix. And I felt like everything was worthless. I felt like there was no purpose to life, which there wasn't if God didn't exist, because all this sudden realization that God doesn't exist makes me think, what is reality? Reality is nothing. I'm no different than a rock. My kids are no different than a rock. That's exactly what I thought. My kids are no more important than rocks. And it just spun me into the worst black hole. I mean, I felt like I was in absolute hell. I would never wish any of that upon anybody, because it was the doubt mixed with the ensuing depression. And the ensuing depression was just so incredibly dark. I'd never been through depression before. I didn't understand Angie. I told Angie while she was in it so many times. I tried to be kind to her, but I was like, why don't you just snap out of it? Why don't you just be happy? That's what you do. As if they're making a choice to be like this, you know? Nobody chooses to do these things. Nobody chooses to get into these situations. And everybody wants to get out. That's you know, if you could snap your fingers and get out, you would, but you can't. So you can't snap yourself out of it. And I couldn't snap myself out of it. And this lasted for many months. It actually lasted for many years in one way, but for many months it was just a terrible, terrible darkness, black hole. Until one day, and I don't even know why I tell you this, because I'm not trying to teach you anything by this, and I don't even know what to think of this. But I was on the elliptical trying to keep up with life. I was on the elliptical, and I was reading a book. It was by J.P. Moreland, and it was about doubt, but it wasn't helping me at all. I was like, I'm not even, as I'm reading this, I'm like, this is meaningless. I already know all this stuff. Well, I've always known all this stuff, that kind of thing. I'm not saying the book is good. JP, everything he does is great, but for me, it wasn't effective. And while I was riding the elliptical, all of a sudden I felt the left-hand side of my brain, it felt like it got blood. I swear. You know how one of your leg goes to sleep, and then all of a sudden you feel the blood, it's kind of cold? All of a sudden I felt this coolness go to the left-hand side of my brain, and then suddenly my belief came back. And I mean, it was just crazy. I was like, the thing that I thought of first was Ephesians chapter 2, 8, 9. The faith, the belief is not of yourselves. It is a gift of God. And from then on, I've realized that as I teach apologetics and theology, that's not what's doing it whenever it comes down to people's faith. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's not awesome. I still do it, and I still have just as much passion. But at the same time, it's God that gifts the faith. And it was kind of like he just told me that in a very dramatic way that I didn't want to have happen. But he did. And ever since then, I've had it back pretty much. There have been cycles where I'll go through a panic and doubt, depression. I mean, from then on, all the way till today, I experience all kinds of emotional problems. It's like my emotions broke. I'm not emotionally stable all the time now. I'm better. I'm a lot better today, and I don't want to overstate my problems, because I do stay pretty good, especially right now. I'm very nervous a lot, but it has circumstances that are involved, anxiety, just like all of us do. But I can go into that depression, though. I can feel it. And I have to do certain things. Whenever I feel it coming, that same feeling that I felt on that day on March 15th, I can feel it coming, and I have to do certain things. And usually, should I tell you guys this? This is just dumb. I don't know. No, I will tell you this, because normally it's not something you don't feel the doubt coming, and then all of a sudden you jump in and start your apologetics and pushing. This type of person, my type of personality, will overdo it, and my brain will break again if I jump into apologetics. As a matter of fact, I have to stay away from apologetics whenever I start to doubt. As a matter of fact, I have to stay away, and this is going to sound bad, but I have to stay away from the Bible completely. And it's not as if you only find God in the Bible. It's not as if I'm giving up on God by saying that. I just say, I can't read the Bible right now. I'm in one of those states of mind that if I read it, everything I see I will doubt, and it will only intensify my doubt. So I stay away from it. And this I help people this way too, that I can tell are going through the same thing that I went through. And it's true. You cannot engage in your mind, with your mind, intellectually, logically, apologetically, or it will keep on breaking, because it is not a brain issue. It's not a mind issue. It's not an issue of the intellect or rationality. All that is going to do is hurt it more. You've got to relax your mind. Anyway, I'm not trying to talk to all you guys who doubt it. But by the way, if you do have doubt, if you do have problems, I would love to talk to you. It's part of what my ministry does. I really would. I talk to many, many people who go through these problems, whether it's OCD doubt, scrupulosity, or whether it's just intellectual doubt, or whether it's more of any kind of doubt that you're going through, any type of problems. I love to talk to people through it because I've been through it. I've been there. It's hell. I've talked to a lot of people. I know you don't want to be there. But anyway, so that's part of what I went through. But all this time, I started gaining weight again, getting out of shape. And it was just, I say gaining weight again because it was 9 to 13. I had weight, but I was really, really in shape for a long time. And here's the last part of my testimony. And it may take a little while, but it is important. Once I started those drugs, it was very, very difficult for me to get off them because they would always make things better for a minute. At first, whenever I first started taking them, they would always make them better, but then it would just go downhill from there. But whenever I was in these moods, whenever I was anxious, scared, depressed, wanted to escape all the problems, I felt like I had broken. I felt like I was going to be Superman and save my family, and I came here and I broke myself very, very badly. And in so many ways, just in 1,000 pieces, here I am. And so I'm trying to still do my mother, take care of her. My dad is gone. I'm still trying to be Superman. I'll take care of her at home. We don't want to put her in a nursing home. I'll take care of her, and I can just go to the Credo House and teach whenever I need to, and my executive director can take care of the rest, Tim. And so that didn't really work out. I was not going to Credo House very much. I was staying home, taking care of my mom. My back was hurting so bad, so I started the drugs again, and I got so addicted to those drugs at this time. It was so intense. I don't know how I didn't die. And this was from 2013 to 2017. So for 4 years, I decided my life had not broken enough. So let me break it the rest of the way. And so I was on the drugs, and it was opioids. It was Oxycontin. And the doctor was giving me a whole lot of it. But then he started seeing the problem after a few years. I'm doing everything I can. I take all the drugs too fast, and then I have to go through withdrawals, the horrible, absolute nightmare withdrawals of Oxycontin over and over again every month because I would take the drugs too fast. And I tried to get off. I didn't want to be on them anymore. It was controlling my life. I prayed and prayed and prayed, Lord, stop this. By this time, I'm like, Lord, just let me die. Please just let me die. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to kill myself because I'm not going to hurt anybody like that, but just do something. Don't make me overdose because I don't want people to see this. But eventually I ended up telling everybody, going to rehab, telling everybody, and no, not telling everybody. Everybody knew eventually because I was sleepwalking all the time and falling down, waking up in random places, doing weird stuff while I was sleepwalking. And we thought that was my drugs. But I had such a horrible problem with the drugs. I need to make that real clear. Horrible, horrible problem with those drugs. But I was sleepwalking, and we associated that sleepwalking with the drugs. And it probably did have something to do with the drugs too, but it just wasn't totally the drugs. It's my last story. But so sleepwalking, and everybody's worried about me, telling me to go to rehab. And finally I did go to rehab, and I got off for a little bit, but then I got back on and just went full throttle. I mean, I was buying them from friends who would get them from drug dealers, and I didn't care. You know, I was just going up to meet people for drug deals nonstop while I was teaching and stuff, teaching theology. And even taking my kids, you know, hey, I've got to go meet so-and-so. Do you want to come with me? Yeah. You know, and then my little kid, I mean, my, 10-year-old kid, my 11-year-old kid was coming with me, and my nephew was coming with me, and we were going, I'd say, wait here. I'd get out of the car, go get in another car and make the drug deal and come out. And it was just horrible. I felt like since I had been prescribed them, it was okay. And even whenever I couldn't get them, whenever I would think about moving to heroin, I would think, I can't do that because they're not legitimized. Heroin's not legitimized. These opioids are. They're prescribed by doctors, so it makes sense. At least to me it did. But it was horrible. Went through withdrawals over and over again. I mean, just horrible. Went to the hospital over and over again because I was sleepwalking and waking up. I mean, it was just really, really bad. And so, anyway, so I finally ended up, my wife told me, she was crying, and she said, everybody's telling me to make you move out if you don't stop, or for me to move out. And I didn't see it hurt her until now. She's just such a kind soul. She can't tell people, she can't kind of enforce her will in that way upon me. She never has. And this is the first time I've ever seen her do that. And she was crying. I was like, I did not know this was like this with you. I'm so sorry. And I promised her I'd quit, and I did at that point. So wanted to quit for a long time, but did not have the stars aligned. There were all kinds of things, stars that went to rehab. Everybody was mad at me. I mean, it was just coming down upon me. But her sadness was a thing that really, I think, was the last star that got aligned. So I quit the drugs, haven't done them in, that was 2017. But the problem was, here we go. The problem was I was still sleepwalking after the drugs. It did stop for a year, which is really weird. It stopped for a year, but then it started back up again slowly. And it was so bad, the sleepwalking. And, I just keep on gaining weight too. And, I just have no energy, nothing. I'm still teaching. I'm still doing things. I'm still limping along. There's people that are still supporting me, making my life to where I can function. I mean, the whole time, so many of you guys have been so great to me. I mean, you've known everything I've gone through, and you still are there. You're just like Chet. Chet was always there, arms wide open, even though he knew these things. And you guys have seen me so screwed up. I'm not saying I'm good now. I mean, I'm good as far as the drugs and the sleeping, but I mean, I still have to get healthy again. I still have all kinds of problems. But anyway, so let me tell you about the sleeping thing. I'm not doing this very well, I don't think. I hope you guys enjoy this, but I don't think I'm telling this very well because I don't know what kind of pattern there is that I'm trying to show. But anyway, so here I am still sleepwalking. 2019, I really start sleepwalking very, very bad. Cannot keep from doing this and doing weird stuff. Now, at this point, I start doing really, really dangerous stuff while I'm sleepwalking. My wife half the time thinks I'm still on drugs. I'm like, no, I'm not on drugs, I promise. I mean, of course they're going to think that, right? Once I start sleepwalking again. The prime reason why I was going to the hospital beforehand and my having all kinds of problems, having this rhabdomyolysis, that because I didn't ever sleep. And I sweated so much. I know that those don't seem like symptoms of rhabdomyolysis, but it's the best we had. We didn't know what else because the drugs didn't cause it. And now here's after I got off the drugs and it's still happening and I'm sleepwalking and I'm about to die at any moment. That's what I thought. I mean, rhabdomyolysis, whenever kidneys stop, that it kills you. You got like a 10% chance of living. And I had my kidneys stop 7 times under rhabdo. But here I am. And my kidneys are fine. I don't have dialysis, nothing, not one single problem with them. But I'm still sleepwalking, okay? And this goes on to where, listen to this, okay? Just listen. I don't know what I'm trying to say with this. Part of my testimony is I look back and you say, I want to know about you, Michael. I'm probably not telling the best parts, am I? I'm telling you guys all the bad stuff. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. I love the Lord, and I really do. And here's the Lord. I want you to see the Lord in the background. I want you to make this be like like Esther, you know? I don't mention God that much, but he is the one who's controlling it. I hope you're seeing it like that, because this is the turning points in my life, and they're always made by the difficulties, her hurt, the open wounds, and the pain. And that's the testimony that I give. Maybe I should just give the testimony of the great things, my kids, my wife, my sisters, the relationships I have. But I think these things shape us differently, and that's why I tell it this way. But anyway, so here I am sleepwalking all the time, and I'm getting up, and I go, and I'll do things like, it all started with me kind of almost falling down. I'd be like in the bathroom, and I just wake up falling down. And I don't know how whenever you're asleep and you are falling down, you wake up. And I always wake up falling down. Sometimes I'd be falling forward, sometimes backward. And it got really scary because I would just wake up in random places, way in the backyard in the trees, falling backwards. I'd wake up and I didn't know what was behind me. Just suddenly, where am I at? What am I about to hit? Or falling forward. Where am I at? What am I about to hit? I hit everything in the world. Busted head open, hip straight on my back. I mean, just everything. Falling straight down on my butt, my spine. I mean, just tons and tons of falling down. Did it all the time. But sometimes I would wake up, not falling down. I'd wake up and one time I took a drink and I looked at it and it was ammonia with chocolate in it. I went and made ammonia. I poured a glass of ammonia, put chocolate powder in it, mixed it up, and was drinking it. I'm like, what am I doing? You wake up doing something like that. One time I woke up, but I'm like at my neighbor's house, trying to open the door. What am I doing? I'm going to get shot. So I, wake up going. Another time I'm waking up and I'm just driving down the other side of the road, just right straight on the other side of the road on a main road. And I'm like, what am I doing? I mean, I didn't know what to do. And I'm going to the hospital over and over again because of various reasons. I broke my foot in 4 places, tore ligaments. I don't know how I did it. I just woke up with a broken foot that way. I was going to hospital for that. I was going to hospital because I was having encephalitis, all kinds of problems. And so it wasn't ending. Everybody was scared. I was scared. I'm going to die. I'm drinking ammonia. I go and pull out a toaster. The one more thing here. I pull out a toaster and plug it in and go get a knife and stick it in there. And my son is sitting there. He says, Dad, what do you do? Because this would happen during the day too. Because I slept and I walked during the day whenever I hadn't slept in a long time. I usually go through patterns, 4 or 5 days, and then I crash really hard finally, and then wake up and be halfway decent for a few days. But Dad, what are you doing? And I looked at myself and I'm like, what am I doing with a knife? Sticking it in the toaster? What would people do? Why would anybody do that other than to kill themselves? Because that's one of the things you don't ever do. And then I started thinking this is very demonic. I don't know. Why would I be doing this in an unconscious level whenever I'm the weakest in my will? Maybe that's what is happening at these points. I don't know. I'm not saying that it was demons or demon, controlled or something, but man, it's weird. Why would I make ammonia? Why would I go over to the neighbor's house? Why would I stick a knife in the toaster? But, I mean, demons tried to throw the kid in the fire every single time, all the time. So, anyway, finally I got encephalitis really bad. Almost died. I mean, I'm in the hospital over and over again. Got encephalitis, and the doctor came and said, First doctor. How many times I've been to the doctor over all of this? Nobody could figure anything out. I don't know. There's probably 20, 25 times so far. I don't know why I'm not dead. But the doctor says, Michael, all you have to do is wear a CPAP. You've got sleep apnea. I'm like, oh, I don't believe it. Don't believe it. But anyway, at least he gave me something to try, and I go home, and I tried to get one. I don't have health insurance that will cover it. And so graciously, people gave me one, and it worked amazingly. I mean, that from that day on until today, this was what? Is it 2 years or 3 years now? I think it's been 2 years. 2 years. Because I started my Patreon right after I started wearing the mask, because my life came back to me. And ever since then, I've worn a mask every single night. And I have not had one sleepwalk episode, not had one problem. Life has gotten better. I've lost some weight, still have a lot of weight to lose. Got to get back healthy, everything. But that is my testimony of the way the Lord has brought me through. And I look back and I say, Lord, why in the world would you do that to me, my family, and all that kind of stuff? But at the same time, I don't think I would ask him to take any of those away. I still got problems. I still got a lot of problems that'll probably be part of the turning points later on. I'm not a gift that trapped up. This is who I was, this is what happened, and this is who I became. My conversion to Christianity was not dramatic. My mom taught me very early on. I don't remember when I became a Christian. My following the Lord was not what was somewhat dramatic. But since then, now that I look back, I say, golly, I can screw up so bad in so many ways. And I can break so easily. I'm so fragile. No matter how strong I think I am, no matter how much theology I know, no matter how many seminary classes I've taken or degrees I've gotten or ordinations I've had, I'm just as weak as everybody else in my family. I'm just as weak as anybody. And the Lord takes us through patterns. That doesn't mean that he doesn't use me for what I'm doing. It doesn't mean that it's great, not great. I love doing what I'm doing. And I think it's absolutely effective because it creates a foundation through all of this. It's what the Lord does. But at the same time, I would never in 2004, 2005, after being who I was for something, I would never think I would get addicted to drugs. Ever. I wouldn't even think, I mean, that would just be hilarious. I never think I would gain weight. I would never think I would become unhealthy. I would never think that I could be in the position I'm in right now. And if I saw myself 2007, if I was able to look forward, or 2010, able to look forward and see myself now, I'd say that guy is screwed up. And I'm not looking forward to becoming him. But at the same time, I look back and I tell him, you've got to go through this. Because you've got to be broken in so many ways. You have to. I know you don't want to. I know you don't want to look like this or act like this or think like this or be like this or have gone through this. But you have to. Because it's who God is creating you to be. And I know it looks worse, but it is better. That's my testimony. That's where I'm at. I probably should have told a lot of other stuff that was more impressive. I didn't tell anything impressive. But maybe I'll use this for a little while as showing people my testimony. I don't know. But thanks for listening. Oh wait, one thing, if you want to support, there you go. Go to patreon.com/C Michael Patton. That's where you get all the Credo courses, all those courses that I taught at the Credo House that I told you about. All the two courses that I taught all the way back in, at Stonebriar, the theology program. You get the entire thing. You get just so much stuff. Just go there, support me. You get other stuff besides that. You get part of a community. We're doing stuff. Hopefully we're doing stuff, getting ready to start a book study together. But I love you guys, and I will see you soon.
Theology